Maya Johnson did not believe in fate. She believed in calendar alerts, in well-timed emails, in the quiet satisfaction of crossing tasks off a to-do list. She believed in building a career brick by brick until she had carved out a place in a world that wasn't built to make room for women like her. But on the night of her first solo-curated exhibition at the Hammond Galleria night, she had spent years preparing for, fate didn't bother knocking. It crashed into her life in the span of 4 humiliating minutes. The street outside the gallery buzzed with opening night anticipation journalists, setting up tripods, influencers posing under the marquee lights, patrons dressed in colors richer than the wine they would soon drink. The whole scene shimmered with that familiar, pretentious glamour of the art world, beautiful, sharp, and quietly suffocating. Maya took one steadying breath and stepped away from the crowd. Her lipstick had smudged probably from the water bottle she'd nervously chugged in her Uber. Her hands weren't quite steady. Her pulse was too loud. She needed 1 minute, just one, to pull herself together before stepping into the public eye. A sleek black Bentley rolled up along the curb, its surface reflecting the city's neon hues like a pool of ink. Maya barely noticed it. The tinted windows were impossibly dark, so dark that they promised anonymity. A perfect mirror. Thank God. She leaned toward the window, her breath fogging the surface for a moment as she drew a quick line of red across her bottom lip. She fixed the shape, checked her teeth, smoothed an errant curl. Then came the eyeliner, her armor, her confidence. She dragged the pen into a sharp wing, exhaled, and let herself relax for the first time all day, until a flash exploded behind her. She froze. Another flash, the sound of a camera shutter, a startled murmur, and then Aurora's shadow moved behind the tinted glass. Someone was in the car. Her heart stalled, her stomach plummeted. And before she could step back and pretend none of this ever happened, the window slid down with a soft hydraulic sigh. 2 cold gray-blue eyes stared back at her, sharp, unblinking, cut from the kind of calm that could silence rooms. The man behind the window didn't speak. He didn't have to. His face was the kind of face people remembered, the kind that had probably been on the cover of business magazines 1,000 times. A strong jaw, an immaculate suit hair that looked like it cooperated just out of respect for the man wearing it. He was devastating in a way that said he didn't care enough to notice he was devastating. Maya's mouth went dry. But before she could stutter out an apology, someone in the gathering crowd gasped loud enough to crack the night open. "Oh my God, that's Elijah Carter! Why is that black girl leaning into his car?" The words sliced the air. Sharp, public, cruel. The whispers spread instantly, swelling like a storm. Who is she? What is she doing? Is she trying to get something from him? Maya felt them land on her skin, hot and humiliating. Faces turned toward her, curious, judgmental, hungry for scandal. Her body moved backward before her mind caught up her heels, scraping the pavement. The spotlight she had prepared for all week now felt like a firing squad's aim. Her chest tightened painfully, anger and embarrassment tangling into something sharp. She managed a single breath before her voice scraped out, I'm so sorry. I didn't know you were in the car." No response. Elijah Carter simply watched her, with the unnerving composure of a man whose power was so absolute that he never needed to interrupt, never needed to explain himself. Silence thickened. The crowd leaned closer, hungry. Then Elijah spoke. "Don't go." His voice was low, crisp, command threaded through silk. It wasn't loud, but somehow everyone heard it. Maya froze. Her pulse tripped over itself, her thoughts racing. Was he angry? Offended, about to call security on her? Had she just humiliated the gallery herself, her artists? "I need to speak with you," he added. The crowd reacted like a single creature, sharp inhalations, widening eyes. A ripple of speculation. Maya wished the pavement would open up and swallow her whole. "I meant no disrespect," she managed, though her voice was barely audible. "I was only fixing my makeup. I wasn't trying to what?" His gaze didn't soften, but something in it shifted in interest, faint but unmistakable. "Get my attention." Her face burned. "No." "Good," he said, as if the answer mattered more than it should have. Another shutter clicked. Maya flinched. She couldn't breathe, couldn't think. She needed to escape before the narrative cemented into something ugly and untrue. "Elijah," a man called from the steps of the gallery. "Are you coming in?" He didn't look away from Maya. In fact, he tilted his head, assessing her like she was art he couldn't quite interpret yet. "I will," he said. "With her." Her heart stopped. With me," Maya whispered. "I assume you're Maya Johnson," he said calmly. "Curator of the exhibition tonight." Her name sounded different from his lips, deliberate, shaped around some private intention. Yes. I am." He nodded once, every gesture precise and controlled. "I'm here to acquire several pieces from one of your featured artists, but I don't want a standard tour." His eyes held hers, pinning her in place. "I want you to show me." Maya blinked. That didn't make sense. Elijah Carter didn't ask for personal anything. He didn't request. He dictated. Why her? Why this? Why now? The crowd murmured, louder speculation spiraling. Maya's instincts screamed at her to refuse. Keeping distance from a powerful white billionaire was self-protection, not paranoia, especially after the way the onlookers had reacted to her mere presence at his window. But she was also a curator responsible for the success of the show. And this Manthus man could buy out the entire exhibition and make or break reputations overnight. Before she could respond, a voice bubbled up from the cluster of photographers. "Is she your date?" "Mr. Carter." Maya's lungs collapsed around the question. Elijah didn't answer. Instead, he stepped out of the Bentley with a smooth, measured grace, closing the door behind him. He was taller than she expected. Broad-shouldered presence, heavy with quiet command. He walked toward her. One step, another, close enough that she could smell his cologne, clean, expensive, understated. He extended a hand. "Shall we?" Maya almost laughed, or cried, or fled. "Why are you doing this?" she whispered. For the first time, something softened in his expression, not warmth exactly, but clarity, as though he had just come to a decision, because he said quietly, "I don't like the way they're looking at you." The words landed like a strike to her ribs. Not flirtation, not condescension, not heroics. A simple acknowledgement, sharp as truth. The tension in Maya's chest trembled. "Elijah." "I don't want to cause a scene," she whispered. "You didn't," he said. "They did." Her throat tightened. "And if I walk in with you," she pressed, "people will talk. They already are." He wasn't wrong. He watched her a moment longer, his gaze steady, infuriatingly sure. "You can say no," he said, voice softer than before. "But I'd rather you didn't." Maya's mind spun. This was supposed to be her night, her work, her artists, her vision. And instead, she'd become the center of a spectacle she hadn't asked for. But refusing him now would create an even bigger scene. So with a breath that trembled more than she wished, Maya placed her hand in his. His fingers closed around hers, warm and firm. A strange shock shot up her arm. Surprise, fear, something dangerously close to curiosity. As they walked toward the gallery entrance together, the crowd exploded in whispers. Someone snapped another photo. Someone else cursed under their breath. A woman scoffed loudly. "Of course it's her!" Maya's spine stiffened. Elijah leaned in just enough for only her to hear. "Walk with your head up," he murmured. "They don't deserve your fear." And God help her, she did. For the first time since the window lowered, she lifted her chin and stepped into the gallery by his side. Inside, the buzz shifted. Heads turned. Conversations faltered. Breath hitched. It felt like stepping into a spotlight she hadn't auditioned for. Elijah didn't release her hand, but he did lean close enough for his breath to brush her ear, sending an involuntary shiver down her spine. "I'm not here to cause trouble for you," he said softly. "I'm here because your work is worth seeing. And because you—" He paused, the sentence catching. "You intrigue me." Her heart stuttered. She shouldn't feel anything. She should be furious, mortified, scared. But as the doors shut behind them and the noise of the street fell away, one thought whispered through her mind, unbidden, unwanted, undeniable. This, whatever it was only the beginning. And through the gallery's glass wall, she failed to notice a journalist lowering his camera, checking the preview, then smiling. He had captured the perfect scandal-worthy shot. A shot that would explode online in less than an hour. A shot that would turn her carefully structured world upside down. A shot that would haunt everything that came next. The gallery doors shut behind them with a soft, thud-a-thin barrier separating Maya and Elijah from the hungry eyes outside. But the silence inside wasn't peace. It was a pressure chamber. The Hammond Gallery had been transformed for the night spotlights, casting warm halos on each painting, floral arrangements wrapped in deep burgundy ribbon, soft jazz drifting from speakers hidden among sculptures. It should have felt like Maya's triumph, her moment. Instead, the air felt heavy, stretched taut by the whispers that followed their entrance. Maya withdrew her hand from Elijah's the moment they stepped farther inside. She hoped the motion looked casual. It wasn't. Her fingers tingled with the ghost of his touch, and she hated that she noticed it at all. Elijah didn't reach for her again, but she felt his attention settle on her, like a coat placed over trembling shoulders. Quiet, protective, and entirely too perceptive. "Are you all right?" he asked. The question wasn't soft, but it was sincere. "I'm fine," Maya said, automatic brittle. Her smile, she suspected, looked more like a wince. Inside the gallery, guests began to turn their heads. She could hear murmurs rippling between clusters of patrons. Some were curious, a few appreciative, others unmistakably judgmental. A thin woman near the champagne table stared directly at Maya, her lips pressing into a judgmental line. Her companion leaned closer and whispered something, both of them, then glancing pointedly at Elijah. Maya felt the familiar burn of being evaluated, not as a professional, but as an anomaly. As a black woman in a space where she was expected to be charming, impressive, but never too close to someone like him. She forced her shoulders straight. "This way," she said, not waiting to see if Elijah followed, knowing he would. She led him toward the first installation, a series of mixed media canvases depicting migration stories through fragmented silhouettes. It was one of her favorite collections, raw, honest, and powerful. But tonight, even art felt flimsy compared to the scrutiny tightening around her. She took a breath and lifted her curator's voice, the one she'd trained, practiced, and sharpened for years. These works explore what it means to move across borders, both literal and emotional. The artist grew up. "Tell me what you see," Elijah interrupted. Not rude, not dismissive, just interested. The question knocked her momentarily off balance. Most collectors wanted the same sanitized spiel. Elijah wanted the part she never voiced aloud. She looked at the nearest canvas, hards of color forming a figure stepping into an undefined horizon. I see someone trying to belong in two places at once, she said quietly. Someone carrying the weight of expectations on one shoulder and their identity on the other. Someone who knows that no matter how far they go, parts of them will always be questioned. Her throat tightened. She didn't mean to make it about herself, but she wasn't sure Elijah missed the connection. He studied the canvas, then her. It's a powerful piece. His voice was low, almost contemplative, and for a second, she forgot the whispers around them. But the world didn't forget her. As Maya turned to guide him to the next piece, her mentor, gallery director Susan Hall, materialized from across the room, moving with the urgency of someone trying to manage a potential disaster. Maya, Susan said, with a tight smile. A moment, please, Susan rarely asked. She usually commanded. Maya felt the spike of dread instantly. Elijah looked at Susan with a polite, unreadable expression. I'll give you a moment, he said, stepping aside. He moved only a few feet away, but stayed within sight, close enough that the gesture read differently to the room. Intentionally. Publicly. Susan waited until he was out of earshot, then dropped the polite mask. What exactly are you doing? She whispered sharply. Maya blinked. I'm showing him the exhibition. Susan's voice dropped lower. You walked in with him, he asked. It doesn't matter. Do you have any idea what people are saying right now? Maya felt heat crawl up her neck. Yes, she said tightly. I heard some of it outside. Well, now they're saying it in here. Susan's tone wasn't cruel, but it was exasperated the way someone sounds when they think they're being pragmatic. This is your opening, Maya. You've done excellent work, but optics matter in this industry. You can't look like you're using him to elevate the show. Maya's stomach nodded. I'm not. You know how this world works. Susan cut in not unkindly. You're brilliant, but you're young. And... She hesitated, just one beat too long. And you draw attention, meaning black, visible, easy target for elitist gossip. Maya stepped back as if burned. Understood, she said, though the words scraped. Susan's expression softened. Just be careful. She walked off before Maya could reply. Maya stood still, fighting the sting behind her eyes. She didn't want to cry. Not here. Not tonight. And definitely not because of Elijah Carter. She inhaled slowly, collecting herself. When she turned back, Elijah was already looking at her. He lifted one brow, subtle questioning. She crossed back to him with steady footsteps. Sorry about that. You don't have to apologize to me. The softness of the statement nearly unraveled her. She gestured to another piece. There's more to see. He followed, but his gaze brushed her profile, like fingertips, attentive to every flicker of emotion she tried to hide. They continued through the gallery. Maya explaining Elijah, listening far more intently than she expected. He asked thoughtful questions, the kind that showed he wasn't pretending to care. But every time someone glanced too long or whispered too loudly, Maya felt it like a pinprick under her skin. And she knew Elijah noticed, because every time tension pulled at his jaw. Halfway through the exhibition, Elijah leaned slightly toward her, voice pitched for her alone. Are you sure you're all right? Maya kept her eyes on the sculpture in front of them, a silver figure dissolving into threads of light. It's just noise, she said. I've lived with it my whole life. His silence was heavy, not pitying, but frustrated, as though he resented how accustomed she was to being diminished by others. Noise shouldn't bruise, he said quietly. It does, she answered. You just learn to hide the marks. He looked at her with an intensity that felt like a touch. No one should have to. Her breath stilled. Before she could respond, someone called Elijah's name from across the room. A cluster of executives approached, eager for his attention. Maya stepped aside instinctively, muscle memory from years of navigating power dynamics. But Elijah surprised her. He didn't leave. Instead, he looked at her first. "Will you wait?" It wasn't a command. It wasn't entitlement. It was consideration. Maya nodded once, unable to trust her voice. Elijah walked away with the executives, but he didn't perform for them. If anything, he seemed impatient to finish with them, his gaze flicking back to her twice small, quick glances that felt far more intimate than they should. While he was occupied, a young art critic, Nolan Pierce, approached Maya. Nolan wrote for a major online publication and had once praised her curatorial instincts. Tonight, however, he wore a smirk she recognized too well. So Nolan drawled, sipping his champagne, networking at the highest level I see. Maya stiffened. "If you're referring to Mr. Carter, he's here as a collector." "Sure?" Nolan said, tone dripping implication. "Collectors always enter hand in hand with curators they've never met before." Maya's jaw tightened. "I didn't walk in with him by choice." "Oh, trust me," he said, leaning closer. "No one thinks he was the one chasing." The insinuation hit like a slap. "I'd watch the narrative." "Maya," he added, stepping back, "your talent is real, but people love stories more than merit." He disappeared into the crowd, leaving her breath shaking in her throat. When Elijah returned, he immediately sensed the shift in her posture. "What happened?" he asked. "Nothing," she said too quickly. He held her gaze. "Maya, I said it's nothing." The lie tasted bitter, but telling him the truth felt riskier. Too revealing, too vulnerable. She forced herself to continue walking. "There's one last installation. After that, you'll have seen everything." Elijah didn't push. He simply walked beside her, silent but present, which made her chest ache more than if he'd demanded answers. They reached the final piece, a suspended sculpture made of shattered glass, suspended by near-invisible wires, forming a figure stepping away from its own reflection. Elijah looked at it, then at her. "This one is yours," he said quietly. She blinked. "What?" The fear of being seen. The courage to be seen anyway. Something in her rib cage cracked open. "Why are you like this?" she whispered, angry, grateful, undone. "Like what?" "Paying attention." His eyes softened, just barely. "Maybe I don't know how to do anything else." The confession stole her breath. Before she could respond, her phone buzzed inside her clutch. She ignored it. It buzzed again, and again. Finally, she pulled it out only to see a notification from a news site. Her stomach plunged. A headline. A photo. Taken outside the gallery. Mysterious black woman, seen clinging to billionaire Elijah Carter. Before gala. Sources say she forced interaction. Forced. The word blurred. Elijah noticed the change in her expression. "What is it?" Maya couldn't speak. She handed him the phone. He read it. His jaw clenched hard enough to crack stone. "Maya." "I need a minute," she said, stepping back. He reached for her, then stopped, fingers curling. He'd learned she hated being cornered. "Maya," he said, again quieter this time. "Let me fix this." She shook her head, breath unsteady. "You can't fix what people want to believe." And before he could stop her, she turned and walked deeper into the gallery, away from him, away from the spotlight, away from the chaos waiting outside. But she knew one thing, with devastating certainty. This night wasn't bending anymore. It was about to break. Maya stood in the dim alcove of the gallery's back hallway, her fingers pressed to her temples, the pulse in her neck erratic. She hadn't cried. Not yet. But the headline felt like it had carved itself directly onto her skin. Forced interaction. 2 words. But she'd heard their venom her whole life, just never with this particular sting. Her phone buzzed again, texts pouring in from friends, from her sister, from an art school peer she hadn't spoken to in 2 years. "Are you okay, Maya? I saw the article. What the hell happened? Tell me you're suing somebody." She shut off the screen and dropped the phone back into her clutch like it burned. A door creaked. She turned, expecting a staff member, maybe Susan. Instead, Elijah stepped through the threshold alone. He didn't say anything at first, just looked at her. Not with pity, thank God, but something steadier. Like he was bracing for impact, too. "I thought I asked for a minute," Maya said, not unkindly, but there was an edge in her voice, iron under silk. "You did," Elijah said. "I gave you 3. She nearly laughed. What a gift. He came closer, but didn't invade her space. "I saw the headline," he said. "It's trash. No argument here. I already contacted my legal team. We can issue a takedown, or sue if it escalates. I'll do whatever you want." She looked at him, then truly looked at the power that trailed him like a tailored shadow. He could make phone calls and change the narrative. She knew that. But it wasn't that simple. "That's not the part that scares me," she said softly. Elijah tilted his head. "What does?" "That it won't matter." She let the words settle between them. "You can delete a headline," she continued, "but you can't erase a story people want to believe. I didn't even touch you. But because you're you, and I'm May, it becomes this." She exhaled. "Fable." His eyes darkened. "Maya, people don't see nuance." She cut in. "They see a rich white man and a black woman at his window and decide they've seen the whole movie." The silence between them was thick with history, hers, his, theirs. She leaned against the cool wall, crossing her arms. "This was supposed to be my night." "I know. And now," she swallowed, "now it's a circus. I'm a distraction from my own work." Elijah stepped closer. Not too close. Just enough. "You're not a distraction," he said. "You're the reason the room was worth entering." Her throat tightened. It was the kind of thing that would sound manipulative from anyone else. But with Elijah, it wasn't performative. He wasn't trying to win points. He simply didn't know how to lie in flattery. She hated that part of her, wanted to believe him. A pause. Then she asked, "Why did you ask me to walk in with you?" He didn't blink. "Because they looked at you like you didn't belong." Her laugh was bitter. "They've been doing that my whole life." "Then they're wrong," he said. "And I don't mind reminding them." The room went very still. Maya's chest rose and fell in shallow breaths. "You realize this doesn't help your reputation either, right? You've never been seen with someone like me." Something flickered in his eyes. "You mean someone who's smarter than the room?" "You know that's not what I meant." A longer pause. Then Elijah stepped even closer, slowly, deliberately, like offering her the choice to stop him at any second. "I'm not afraid of being seen with you," he said. Her breath caught. Why she asked the word a whisper. "You don't know me. I'm trying to." The quiet that followed was not absence. It was thick with the things neither of them were ready to admit. And yet, before either of them could speak again, Susan appeared in the doorway. Her gaze flicked between them, quick and sharp. "Sorry to interrupt." Maya straightened. "What is it?" Susan hesitated. "The press are asking for a comment about the article." Maya's stomach turned. "Are they here outside?" "Some photographers too. We can sneak you out the back." "No," Elijah said. Both women turned to him. "I'll speak for her," he said calmly. "I'll make it clear the story is fabricated." Maya stiffened. "Elijah." "Let me." I don't need saving. I'm not trying to save you, he said. I'm protecting what you built, on your terms. The words disarmed her. Again. Susan looked between them, assessing, then nodded. We'll set it up. Discreetly. She exited. Elijah didn't move. You don't owe me this, Maya said after a long silence. I know. She hesitated. But thank you. He gave her a look, then one that didn't belong in a hallway, or in public, or even this early in their story. But it was there. Unmistakable. You said people only see the version they want, Elijah murmured. Maybe it's time they saw a different one. She didn't reply. Couldn't. Because in that moment, she wasn't just fighting a headline. She was fighting the quiet, impossible ache blooming between them. Back in her apartment later that night, Maya stood barefoot in her kitchen, the city glowing beyond her windows. The internet had exploded, of course. There were edited photos, threads of speculation, and the expected barrage of think pieces. But then there was Elijah's statement. It was everywhere by midnight. Ms. Johnson is a respected curator and professional whose work I admire. Any implication otherwise is both false and insulting. Short, clear, no defense of himself, just her. And below that, dozens of tweets resharing the statement with one comment. He didn't deny the chemistry, though. Maya groaned and shut her laptop. Her phone buzzed. Elijah, are you still awake? She stared at the screen. Then, yes. The typing bubble blinked. Do you want to talk about it? She thought for a long time, then typed. No. I want to talk about something that isn't about race or headlines or gallery drama. Just something normal. Another pause. Then tell me something about you. No one knows. She stared, then smiled slowly. I used to write poetry. Badly. In college. It was dramatic and awful and full of stars and metaphors. The response came quickly. I want to read it. No chance. Then I'll tell you one of mine. You write poetry. I've been known to try. Maya laughed out loud. Then the next message came. You laugh like you don't realize you're beautiful. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard, then stopped. There was nothing to say to that. Nothing except, good night, Elijah. A pause. Then, not goodbye. I hope. She shut off the phone. And for the first time in days, she slept. Morning sunlight slanted through the blinds of Maya's apartment, striping the floor in quiet gold. She woke slowly the way a person does after a night too emotionally heavy to process in real time. For a moment, she couldn't remember why her chest felt tight. Then, memory returned the headline. The whispers. Elijah's statement. Their late-night messages. She pressed a palm over her heart, the same organ that had betrayed her far too many times, but it insisted on its own rhythm anyway. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand. A message from her sister. Call me when you're calm enough not to bite my head off. Maya dropped the phone onto her pillow and exhaled. The world was waiting for her to manage it again. But she didn't want to start the day like that. Not with a defensive breath. Not with a fight instinct honed over years of proving herself. She wanted quiet. She wanted space. But instead, her buzzer rang. Twice. Then a third soft pulse. Not impatient, almost tentative. She froze. No one visited her unannounced. Not friends, not coworkers, not even family. She padded to the intercom, hair still messy from sleep. She didn't speak, just pressed the listen button. A low voice filtered through the speaker. Maya. Her breath stopped. Elijah, she whispered, though he couldn't hear her unless she pressed talk. She hovered for a moment, torn between slamming the button and pretending she wasn't home. But then he added quietly, "If you're not comfortable seeing me, I'll leave." She closed her eyes. Of course he'd say that. He always gave her a way out, which somehow made her want to let him in. She pressed talk. "I'm coming down." The lobby felt colder than usual as she stepped off the elevator. Her heartbeat was impossibly loud, so loud, she worried someone might hear it. Elijah stood by the windows, hands in the pockets of a charcoal coat. He looked out of place among the peeling paint and flickering fluorescent lights, like someone had photoshopped him into a setting he didn't belong to. But his expression when he saw her wasn't polished or remote. It was uncertain. Somehow that unnerved her more than any look of confidence could have. "Hi," she said softly. "Hi," he echoed. Silence stretched, charged, and fragile. Then he lifted a paper bag from the nearby chair. "I brought coffee. And something that might be a croissant. But I was too distracted to read the label." She blinked. "You brought me breakfast. I wasn't sure if you'd eaten." "I haven't." He stepped closer and handed her the bag. "Good. Then it's useful." It wasn't the breakfast that stole her breath. It was the fact that he'd come in person without calculation. Not as a billionaire making a statement, but as a man who couldn't stay away. She motioned toward the elevators. "We can talk upstairs." Her apartment was small, cozy, but cluttered art prints leaning against walls, a half-assembled bookshelf, a stack of exhibition catalogs on the table. Maya suddenly saw every imperfection through his eyes. But Elijah didn't seem to notice the chaos. He stepped inside like he was entering a place he'd already imagined. She set the coffee down on her kitchen island, drawing in a steady breath. "You didn't have to come here." "I know." "Then why did you—" He hesitated. Not long, but long enough to tell her he was choosing his words instead of hiding behind them. "Because last night felt unfinished," he said. "And because I didn't want you waking up alone with the weight of all that noise." Her defenses flickered, then wavered. "That's not your responsibility," she murmured. "And yet," he said, "I'm here." Her pulse fluttered dangerously. She looked away, lifting the coffee cup to hide the tremor in her fingers. "It's been a long day, and it's barely started. Let me take you somewhere," he said. Her head snapped up. "Elijah, not a date. A beat. Unless you want it to be. But that's not the intention." Her heart thrummed in confusion, and something far more fragile. "What is the intention, privacy?" he said. "Perspective. A place where the world isn't watching." She folded her arms. "I'm not sure anywhere like that exists for someone like you. For today it does." His voice had softened, or maybe she was finally hearing the truth in it. She hesitated another beat before asking, "Where a studio I keep." "Across the river. No one knows about it. Studio A Place to Think," he said simply. "I bought it years ago and barely use it. But it's quiet." She knew she shouldn't say yes. She also knew her heartbeat had already decided. The drive was silent at first, not awkward, but weighted with everything unsaid. Elijah kept his focus on the road, hands steady on the wheel. Maya watched the city blur by skyscrapers fading into the industrial outskirts. When they crossed the river, he finally spoke. "What happened to you yesterday wasn't okay." She stared ahead. "It happens more often than you think. It shouldn't. Opinions don't change because we want them to." His jaw flexed. Mine changed. She glanced sideways. "About me. About what matters." The words hit her like an open palm, gentle yes, but startlingly intimate. She turned away before he could see the way it unsettled her. The neighborhood they entered was quiet. Converted warehouses, old brick buildings, murals painted over cracked concrete. Elijah stopped in front of a nondescript loft with no signage. He unlocked a metal door and led her up a flight of stairs. At the top, he paused. You don't have to go in, he said. If at any point you want to leave, tell me. Her breath caught at the softness in his tone. I'm not afraid of you, Elijah. His eyes shifted, not smug, not relieved, but something deeper. He opened the door. The studio wasn't what she expected. It wasn't sleek, or expensive, or decorated like one of his penthouse suites. It was raw, honest. Concrete floors, high windows, canvases stacked against a wall, not painted blank, as if he'd planned to start something then never did. A single leather couch sat facing the windows, sunlight spilling across it. A small table held books with dog-eared pages, philosophy, architecture, poetry. She turned slowly. You paint? No, he said. I wanted to. Once. What stopped you? He exhaled. Reality. Expectations. The usual suspects. She stepped toward a canvas, running a finger along the edge. You could still start. Maybe, he said. If I had something worth capturing. Her heart tightened. She turned to him. You brought me here for a reason. Yes. To talk. To listen, he corrected. She swallowed, and for reasons she couldn't explain, even to herself. Something inside her loosened. She sat on the couch. Elijah sat beside her, not touching, but close enough that she could feel the heat of his presence. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then she whispered, When I saw that headline, it wasn't just about the lie. It was about how quickly people believed it, how easily I became a caricature. He looked at her eyes, storm gray and sharpened with anger, not at her, but for her. You deserve better than the way the world treats you, he said quietly. No, she corrected. I deserve better than the way people choose to treat me. A fragile beat passed. You've been dealing with this alone for a long time, he said. Yes, you don't have to anymore. Her chest clenched. Elijah, you don't even know what anymore means for me. My world isn't yours. Then explain it to me. She stared at him. He wasn't performing empathy. He wasn't asking her to relive trauma for his benefit. He was offering space, real space, for her feelings to exist without being minimized. She didn't know what to do with that, so she told the truth. I'm scared, she whispered. Not of you, of what being near you turns me into in other people's minds. He didn't look away. And what does it turn you into? Someone I've spent my whole life refusing to be. She waited for him to dismiss it. He didn't. Instead, he reached out, not to touch her, but to place his hand on the couch between them, palm open, an invitation without expectation. Her breath hitched. I don't want you to be anything but who you are, he murmured. Her throat burned. Slowly, so slowly, she surprised herself. Maya placed her hand in his. Their fingers didn't intertwine. They simply rested together, warm, steady, intentional. A silence settled, but not empty. It felt like the beginning of something dangerous, something tender, something that could ruin them both if they weren't careful. Elijah spoke first, voice barely above a murmur. I need you to know something. What? Before any of this continues, there's something from my past you should hear from Manat, from the world. Her heart stilled. Elijah, she whispered, what did you do? He didn't flinch, but the shadows in his eyes deepened, and she knew whatever he was about to tell her could change everything. For a long heartbeat, Elijah didn't speak. His hand was still open beneath hers, warm but unmoving, as if he feared that the slightest shift would scare her away. Light filtered through the enormous windows, washing over the studio in soft gray. The world outside seemed distant, muted, almost irrelevant. But inside the air crackled with a tension that felt both fragile and inevitable. Maya watched the subtle rise and fall of his chest, the faint muscle ticking in his jaw. Elijah Carter did not look like a man who hesitated often. Finally, he exhaled. "Before I say this," he murmured, "I need you to understand something." Her fingers twitched, not quite pulling away, not quite holding on. "Okay. I'm not proud of it," he said, "but hiding it would be worse." Maya nodded slowly, though a tightness coiled in her stomach. She wasn't sure what she expected. A scandal, maybe. A business mistake. A past relationship that ended badly. Something rich men like to call a learning experience. But the look in his eyes said this wasn't something he could polish into a lesson. He shifted slightly, elbows braced on his knees, head bowed for a moment before he lifted it again. When he did, there was a rawness in his expression that she had never seen from him. Not in the gallery, not in their messages, not even in the way he had defended her. There was a woman. He began quietly. Her breath snagged. "I'm not with her now," he said quickly, reading her tension. "It ended years ago, and not because of anything romantic left between us." A cold uncertainty slid down her spine, but she held his gaze. He continued. "Her name was Serena. We met before everything exploded in my life. Before Carter Holdings grew teeth, before shareholders and boardrooms turned me into a headline waiting to happen." His voice softened. "She knew me when I was just a man with too much ambition and not enough sleep." "What happened?" Maya asked. He hesitated again. A long, heavy pause that stretched like a held breath. "She worked for me," he said finally, directly. Maya felt a sharp pang. Not jealousy, fear. Fear of the power imbalance she knew too well, the kind people romanticized until it destroyed someone's career. And it crossed a line. She whispered, "Yes." The admission didn't come from a place of shameful secrecy. It came like a confession he'd waited years to voice. "We kept it private. Not because we were hiding something inappropriate, at least. That's what I told myself, but because I thought I was protecting her." His fingers tightened slightly, as if resisting the urge to clench. "I was wrong." Maya's pulse slowed until she could hear each beat echo in her ears. "Elijah," she said softly, "did you hurt her?" He shook his head immediately. "Not in the way you're asking. I never threatened her job, never manipulated her. It wasn't like that." A harder edge flattened his tone. "But I underestimated the cost of being with someone in my position. I underestimated what people would assume about her, about us. And when the relationship ended, the fallout didn't hit me. It hit her." A hollow ache formed in Maya's chest. "She became the story," she whispered. "Yes. Not you. No." The words hung between them, naked and heavy with truth. "She left the company," he said. "Not because she wanted to, but because staying meant she would always be someone I'd favored. Someone who earned her position with her body instead of her mind. No matter what she did, she was lesser. And no matter what I said, they didn't believe her." Maya imagined Serena a woman, building a life, a career and identity, and how easily it had been overshadowed by being near Elijah Carter. She swallowed hard. What happened to her after? He looked away, jaw working. She moved to another city, another industry. The last I heard, she was doing better. But I can't pretend I didn't play a part in what she lost. And since then, Maya murmured, "You became untouchable." He nodded once. "And careful." Another nod. "And lonely," she added quietly, surprising even herself. His eyes lifted to hers, and the look in them, steady, bruised, vulnerable, was answer enough. Maya leaned back slightly, mind spinning, heart caught between compassion and caution. Elijah, why tell me this now? Because last night when you walked away from me after seeing that article, his voice lowered. I realized how easily a story can swallow you whole. I saw you stepping into the same shadow Serena had to escape. Her pulse quickened painfully, and she whispered, "And I don't want to be the reason you lose anything," he said. "Not your reputation, not your career, not your sense of safety. I refuse to let history repeat itself." Something cracked inside her. Not fear, not anger, something softer, something that felt suspiciously like understanding, maybe even trust. But then, a thought struck her like ice. "Elijah," she asked carefully, "is Serena the reason you approached me the way you did? The reason you were protective?" His expression tightened. "Partly, and the rest." His reply was immediate. "You." Maya felt heat bloom behind her sternum. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, his voice dropping to a low confession. "Maya, I'm drawn to you. Not because of what happened yesterday or because of the mess online, but because when I talk to you, I don't hear noise. I hear myself, and that hasn't happened in years." Her breath trembled. She needed to slow this down. She needed distance, clarity, something other than the gravitational pull that kept dragging her back to him. But then the world intruded. A buzzing her phone on the table. Maya rose and crossed the room, trying to steady her hands as she checked the screen. The caller ID made her stomach drop. "Susan Hall." Again. She answered. "Maya, where are you?" Susan's voice was tight, urgent. "I've been trying to reach you. I'm busy. What's wrong?" "A journalist just called the gallery. They're saying someone leaked that you and Elijah were together last night, that you left with him. They're preparing a second story." Maya's blood chilled. "What I left alone. I know that Susan said, but optics don't care about the truth. This is escalating. Fast." Maya pressed her fingers to her forehead. "What do they want?" "A comment. Preferably from you. Now." "And Maya?" Susan hesitated. "This one is uglier." "How ugly?" "You're being framed as seeking an advantage," Susan said quietly. "That you used him. That you engineered the first article." Maya felt the floor drop away. She ended the call, slowly lowering the phone as if it were suddenly too heavy. Elijah watched her tension radiating off him. "Tell me. They think I manipulated everything. For my career, for attention, for you." His expression darkened with a fury she'd never seen on him. Not cold, composed anger, but something far more visceral. "Absolutely not. It doesn't matter what's true, Elijah," she said, voice cracking. "You warned me it could happen. And here we are." He stood, crossing the distance to her in 3 strides. "Let me fix this." "You can't," she said, stepping back. Not because she feared him, but because she feared what she felt. "Every word you say becomes another headline. Your defense becomes my indictment." His jaw clenched. "Then what do you want me to do?" She swallowed hard. "I need time." His chest rose sharply. "Time for what?" "To breathe," she whispered. "To think. To figure out if this," she gestured between them, "is worth what it will cost." He stared at her eyes, storming, but his voice was steady. "And if it is?" "That's the part I don't know yet." The silence that followed wasn't hurt, it was acceptance. The kind a person gives only when they're willing to lose something rather than damage it. Elijah stepped back, putting space between them with visible effort. "Maya," he said softly, "I'm not leaving because I want to. I'm leaving because you asked." She closed her eyes, and when she opened them, he was already walking toward the door. But therein, the last moment before he stepped out, he turned. Not dramatic, not desperate, just a man showing a truth he could no longer hide. "When you decide," he said, "I'll be here." The door shut, and Maya was alone with the echo of a choice she wasn't ready to make, but would have to sooner than she imagined. Maya stared at the closed door, long after Elijah had left, his final words echoing in the silence like a promise too fragile to touch. "When you decide, I'll be here." But decide what? Whether she wanted him, whether she trusted him, whether she was willing to risk becoming a footnote in his headline life. She wrapped her arms around herself. The room, once a haven of creativity and solitude, now felt exposed. The air buzzed, not just from tension, but from the sharp sting of exposure. She could already hear the judgment, the parsing of every glance between them, the media machine sharpening its knives, and the cruel irony. She hadn't even kissed him. Not yet. But the world had already written the ending for a story she hadn't agreed to begin. The next morning, the article dropped. Not on a fringe blog, not on a gossip site. Front page, Sunday feature, national circulation, the curator and the kingmaker. They'd found an old photo of her, unflattering and dimly lit, juxtaposed against a shot of Elijah in black tie, head slightly turned like he'd just caught a whisper. The article painted Maya as an opportunist with remarkable timing and hinted that Elijah's interest in her art exhibition was deeply personal. Not once did it mention her resume, not the scholarships, not the years of assistantship, not her degrees, not even her name until the fourth paragraph. Just the young, ambitious gallery curator who left the Hammond opening with Elijah Carter. It wasn't just cruel. It was a deliberate erasure. Susan texted only 2 words: "We're screwed." And yet, Maya didn't cry. She didn't rage, didn't call Elijah, didn't delete her socials. She simply dressed. Black slacks, ivory blouse, burgundy lipstick, sharp as armor. If the world wanted a spectacle, it would get one. But on her terms. The gallery was quiet when she arrived. Too quiet. The kind of quiet that followed something loud and irreversible. Susan met her at the entrance, arms crossed tight. "You shouldn't have come." Maya raised a brow. "I work here. For now." That stung more than she expected. "I didn't sleep with him," Maya said, voice low. "I don't care if you did," Susan snapped. "But you know this world. Perception is policy. Clients are pulling out. Artists are canceling. Half the staff thinks you used your position. And the board." Maya's spine straightened. "What about the board? They're calling a vote next week. About your role." Her stomach dropped. "They think I'm a liability. They think you're a distraction," Susan corrected gently. "And maybe you are." Maya blinked. "So I work twice as hard, build this exhibit from scratch, and the second a man like him notices me, I'm the problem." Susan didn't answer. She didn't have to. The silence was the answer. By noon, her inbox was a minefield. Interview requests, anonymous source leaks. A gossip podcast had already invited her to tell her side. The idea made her nauseous. She left the gallery without speaking to anyone. She needed air. The riverside park was nearly empty, late autumn biting into the wind. Maya sat on a stone bench beneath a rusted sculpture of something abstract and tired. A child ran past her chasing a paper airplane. A dog barked in the distance. Life continued, indifferent to scandal. She closed her eyes. And then, a presence. She didn't need to look to know it was him. Elijah. His energy wasn't loud, but it was unmistakable, like gravity, like breath. "I shouldn't be here," he said quietly, taking the spot beside her. She didn't open her eyes. Then why are you? Because you're here. She turned to him slowly. His coat was dusted with the cold. His eyes were unreadable, but the corners were soft like the weight he carried had grown heavier overnight. I told you I needed space, she said. I know, and you're ignoring that. He gave a half smile. I told myself I wasn't coming to fix anything. Just to see if you were okay. She exhaled shakily. I'm not, she said. He nodded. Neither am I. For a long time they just sat. The wind tangled her curls. His hand rested on his knee, twitching as if he wanted to reach for hers, but didn't. Is this what it would be like? She asked. Every time I'm seen with you, my life picked apart, repainted in someone else's brushstrokes. Yes, he said quietly. At least for now. And you've gotten used to that, I haven't, he said. I've just learned how to survive it. She bit the inside of her cheek. But I don't want to survive my life, Elijah. I know. He turned to her then fully. And there it was again, that impossible vulnerability. I would understand, he said softly, if you walked away. Maya stared at him. Everything inside her screamed to say yes, to run, to self-preserve. But her heart, the traitor, just asked one question. Would you regret not knowing where this could go? She whispered. Do you want me to walk away? Yes. He met her eyes. No games. No ego. No, he said. She nodded slowly. Then I won't. The words shocked her as much as him. A breath escaped him. Not relief, not triumph, just emotion. But I need something from you, she said, firmer now. Anything. I can't be the woman who hides, she said. Not in shadow. Not behind you. You're not. And I won't be the woman who's blamed while you stay silent. His brow furrowed. She leaned closer. I want you to make a statement. His breath stilled. I want you to go on record. Not just defending me, she added, but naming what this really is. That we're seeing each other. That it's personal. That it's not some backroom deal. That could make things worse for you. It could, she agreed. Or it could finally shift the story. A long pause. Then, are you ready for what that means? She gave a faint, bitter smile. Are you? Elijah studied her, then slowly nodded. I'll call my comms team, he said. We'll draft something. With your approval. She looked out over the water, voice quiet but certain. No more approval, she said. I'll write it with you. Later that night, Maya sat at her kitchen table across from Elijah. Two laptops open, hands brushing occasionally as they co-authored the message that would redefine not just the narrative, but the power between them. Every sentence was carefully chosen, every word a risk, every comma an act of rebellion. When it was done, they read it out loud together. What began as a shared love of art has become something deeply personal. Maya Johnson is a woman of brilliance, vision, and integrity. She has earned her place in the art world and in my life. I stand beside her, not to protect, but to partner. Elijah Carter. They didn't say anything after. They just stared at the screen. And then slowly, Maya reached across the table. Her fingers grazed his. Not a kiss. Not yet. But something was already blooming. Not in secret. Not in silence. But in the light. It started with the silence. Not the hateful kind. Not the sharp-edged buzz of scandal. Not his was worse. This was the kind of silence that wrapped itself around her inbox, like smoke, subtle and suffocating. Emails that had once arrived in bursts slowed to a trickle. Invitations to gallery events were suddenly addressed to the Hammond team instead of her by name. A week after the statement with Elijah went live bold, clear, and unwavering, the art world's response wasn't outrage, it was erasure. Maya didn't cry. She worked. She met with artists, rewrote exhibition copy, reimagined a curation pitch for a Harlem-based retrospective, all while the air around her thickened with polite, weaponized indifference. Give it time, Elijah had said. But time wasn't what she needed. She needed to be seen, not as his, not as a mistake, not as a token, as Maya. And then, just when she thought the dust had settled, her past knocked on the front door. Literally. It was raining, the kind of late autumn drizzle that turned the city into a watercolor when she heard the knock. Soft, measured. She opened the door, heart still sore from too many long nights rewriting her worth, and froze. Marcus. Her ex-boyfriend stood on the other side, hands in his coat pockets, eyes the same storm gray she remembered from Chicago. Hey, May. No one had called her that in years. They sat at her tiny kitchen table, 2 cups of tea between them. Elijah's coat still hung on a hook near the door. A ghost. She suddenly didn't want Marcus to see. You're a hard woman to reach these days, Marcus said, offering a crooked smile. National press and all. Maya raised a brow. Is that why you're here? To talk headlines? No. He shook his head. I'm here because I saw what they're doing to you, and I figured you could use a friend. She sipped her tea, slow and skeptical. After 3 years of silence, you're suddenly concerned. He winced. I deserved that. Yeah. But I'm not here to stir things up, he added. I'm here because I know what this industry does to women who look like you. Like us. Maya's defenses flickered. Marcus had been her first great love. A photographer. Sharp, political, passionate. Their relationship had burned too hot too fast. But he'd always seen the world through the same lens of coded doors and invisible ceilings. What do you want, Marcus? She asked, quieter now. I'm curating a new photo series, he said. Centering Black love visibility and power in elite spaces. And I want you in it. She blinked. You want to photograph me? Yes. For your show. For the message, he said. You standing tall in the middle of all this are the message. Something inside her twisted. You don't want to hear what I've been doing for 3 years, but you want to put me in a frame. That's not fair, he said gently. You've always mattered to me, Maya. He hesitated. I couldn't handle how fast you outgrew us. She stared at him. So now that the world wants to tear me down, I finally fit your narrative. That landed. Marcus leaned back, guilt flickering across his features. I'm sorry, he said. That's not what I meant. I thought you might want to reclaim the frame, on your terms. And damn him because part of her did. But she couldn't say yes. Not yet. Later that night, she told Elijah everything. They sat on his penthouse balcony, the skyline burning orange and violet in the distance. He didn't flinch when she mentioned Marcus, didn't try to mark his territory or belittle her past. But something shifted in him, quietly. I know that look, she said softly. What look? The one you get when you want to say something but think it'll come out wrong. He gave a rueful smile. You're not wrong. She nudged his foot with hers. Say it anyway. He was silent for a beat. Then, he's not wrong about what the world sees when they look at us. Maya tilted her head. They see you as exceptional, Elijah continued, but only when they can claim they discovered you. If you walk in beside me, they assume you belong to me. And if I speak up for you, they assume you can't speak for yourself. She exhaled. And when you don't, they assume I'm not worth defending. He nodded. It's a rigged equation. They sat with that truth, heavy, unresolved. Maya looked at him, really looked. You ever wish you could go back? She asked. To before all this. The money, the power, the noise. Elijah considered it, then shook his head. No, but I do wish I'd learned sooner how to share the room. She leaned against him, then her cheek brushing his shoulder. And for a moment, the city faded. Days passed. Then something unexpected happened. A video surfaced, an interview clip from a panel Elijah had done years ago. In it, a young woman in the audience had asked about diversity in corporate art sponsorships. And instead of brushing her off, Elijah had invited her on stage, asked her name, and then offered to fund her MFA. That woman, now a lead curator at MoMA. The video went viral. Suddenly, the narrative around Elijah shifted from detached billionaire to quiet patron of underrepresented talent. And by extension, the narrative around Maya began to soften. Still cautious, still laced with side eyes, but softer. A journalist reached out, one Maya respected. A black woman. Someone who got it. The pitch, a full-length profile on Maya. Not the scandal, not the romance, the career, her curatorial eye, her vision for the future, her place in a space not built for her, but reshaped by her presence. Maya said yes. The interview was raw, real. She spoke about identity, ambition, legacy, about what it meant to love someone who belonged to a world that still debated whether she was enough. She didn't name Elijah. She didn't need to. She named herself. The article went live a week later. Curating Her Future, Maya Johnson, and the Quiet Power of Showing Up. It trended within hours. Not because it was scandalous, but because it was true. And that truth rippled. Artists reached out. Clients returned. And the board at Hammond. They offered Maya a promotion. Senior curator. The youngest in the gallery's history. Elijah found her on the roof that night, a bottle of champagne in one hand, 2 glasses in the other. You did it, he said, voice full of quiet pride. She turned to him, eyes shining. No, she corrected. We did. He poured the champagne. They clinked glasses. And when they kissed, this time slow certain, and seen it wasn't hidden behind fear or scandal. It was exactly what it was. 2 people choosing each other, out loud, at last. The envelope was thick, cream-colored, embossed. It sat on Maya's desk like a challenge daring her to open it. Not because she didn't know what was inside, but because she already did. She'd seen the sender's name. Whitney Foundation for the Arts. The subject line of the email had been clearer than any gallery spotlight. We are thrilled to formally offer you the position of chief curator at our new Paris wing. Paris. The word echoed in her head like a bell. She wasn't ready to ring. She traced the edge of the envelope with a fingertip, her other hand resting on a stack of catalogs she'd just finalized for the Harlem exhibit. Her exhibit. One she'd fought to keep alive through scandal, silence, and self-doubt. And now, here it was, proof of what everyone had once claimed impossible. Maya Johnson, a black woman from a working-class family in Atlanta, had made it to the pinnacle. Not as someone's +1, not as a scandal, but as herself. So why did her throat tighten when she thought about saying yes? That night, Elijah knew something was off the moment she walked into his apartment. Her heels clicked too sharply on the marble. Her coat stayed on too long, and her kiss, soft, distracted, landed on his cheek like punctuation instead of promise. He poured her wine, leaned against the kitchen island, and waited. She handed him the envelope. He read the name. He didn't ask what it meant. He didn't need to. His shoulders didn't slump. His smile didn't falter. But his voice, when it came, was hushed, almost reverent. When do you leave? Maya didn't answer right away. 3 months, she said finally. If I accept. Elijah nodded. She took a breath. Say something real. His jaw tensed. Then I'm proud of you. That's not real enough. His eyes lifted to hers. I don't want you to go, he said. There it was. No pretense. No armor. And I won't be the man who asks you to stay, he added. That too was real. She swallowed hard. Then what are we? I don't know, he said, voice raw. I just know I'm not done knowing you. The next few days passed in a blur. The gallery buzzed with the prep for her final Harlem show. Journalists were already speculating on her inevitable Parisian debut. Friends sent congratulatory texts. Her mother left a voicemail that brought her to tears. But through it all, Maya felt suspended, like she was walking through the final pages of a chapter she hadn't meant to close. She hadn't told Elijah her decision yet, mostly because she hadn't made it. Not truly. The night before the exhibit, she walked into the gallery alone. The lights were dimmed, the walls bare. The pieces she had chosen and fought for were being framed one last time in stillness. And then she saw it, a canvas she hadn't approved. New, untitled, hung quietly at the back of the room. She stepped closer. It was a painting. Large, moody, swaths of deep blue brushed against soft amber, sharp streaks of white slicing through the middle. And at its heart, two figures, silhouettes only facing opposite directions, a faint gold thread still linking their hands. Her breath caught. It wasn't signed. But she didn't need a name to know. Elijah. He found her there an hour later. She didn't turn when she heard him. She just stared at the canvas, like it could answer everything for her. You painted again, she said. He stepped beside her. First time in 10 years. She turned to him. Why this? Elijah's eyes stayed on the piece. Because I needed to say it, he whispered. And words weren't enough. And what's it saying? He finally looked at her. That I see you, he said. Even when you're far. Even when I'm not sure where we go from here. Her chest ached with the weight of it. I thought I had to choose, she said softly, between being everything I could be and being with you. His hand found hers, fingers threading through gently. Maybe we both did, he murmured. Silence passed between them, filled with things unspoken. Then Maya said, I want both. Elijah's lips curved. Then have both. But Paris, I'll come with you, he said. Her eyes widened. He smiled faintly. At least for a while. I can work remotely. My board won't love it, but they'll manage. You'd really... He lifted her hand to his lips. I want to be where you are, not just because I love you. She froze. He said it without flinching. No grand gesture, just truth, but because I believe in what you're building, and I want to witness it. Maya closed her eyes, tears threatening. You always say the exact thing I didn't know I needed to hear. That's love, he said simply. At least it's mine. She stepped closer, pressing her forehead to his, then kissed him like it was the first time. Like she finally understood the difference between compromise and partnership. 3 months later, Paris greeted them with spring rain and champagne air. Their apartment overlooked the Seine, crooked and charming. Her office at the Whitney Wing was 3 metro stops away. His studio faced west, full of light paint and possibility. They were still figuring it out, balancing late nights with early flights, meeting in the middle of ambition and intimacy. Fighting sometimes, passionately, impatiently, but never quietly, and never alone. Maya stood on a balcony one evening, watching the city pulse beneath her. A breeze tugged at her curls. Behind her, Elijah hummed softly, tuning an old record player. She looked back, smiled. the world would always talk, always frame them in its own narratives. But this was their own canvas, and they were the only ones holding the brush. The end.